You may be staring at a payment notification, a text left on read, or a number on a screen that suddenly feels much more emotional than it should. And that's the part no one sees with you, Scorpio. It's never just the bill. It's never just the delayed reply. It's never just the shared expense, the gift, the subscription, the loan, the conversation about who owes what. It's the deeper ache underneath it, the old wound that asks, am I valued here? Or am I just expected to absorb this? If you felt that in your stomach before I even finished the sentence, take a breath with me now. Unclench your jaw. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. Let your tongue soften. Because the intensity rising in you today is not random, and it is not proof that you are too much. The current transit suggests there is a direct line between your self-worth, your money, your body, and your trust. In Western astrology, the moon moves into Sagittarius and lights up your second house of money, values, comfort, and personal priorities. Then later it opposes Uranus in your 8th house of shared resources, debts, intimacy, and psychological entanglement. So there is a confrontation building between what is yours and what has become complicated, shared, assumed, or emotionally loaded. And there is one conversation trying to happen through all of this, but it may not be the conversation you think. Stay with me, because before this day ends, you may understand why the thing that looks like a money issue is actually much more personal than that. The sky is working on your nervous system through the body first, not the intellect first. Not the intellect first. The second house moon in Sagittarius heightens awareness around income, spending, appetite, safety, and the very human need to feel resourced. Sagittarius expands whatever it touches, so the emotional reaction to money, effort, gifts, prices, personal priorities, or a sense of being undervalued may feel bigger, louder, more urgent than usual. But then Uranus in the 8th house throws a live wire into the equation. The 8th house is not casual territory for a Scorpio. It governs merged finances, debts, taxes, inheritances, support systems, the hidden power dynamics in relationships, and the emotional contracts that don't always get spoken aloud. Uranus here can bring sudden changes, revelations, interruptions, or a jolt of truth. A shared payment may shift. Someone may ask for more than you expected. A cost may appear at the last minute. A partner's request may trigger something older in you: fear, jealousy, defensiveness, the instinct to brace. And because this axis runs between the 2nd and 8th houses, the deeper question becomes, where do your values end and someone else's expectations begin? Now add the Vedic layer. With the moon in Scorpio in that system, your emotional body is more exposed, more psychically permeable, more prone to intensity and private overprocessing. This is one of those days when you may think all of your feelings are hidden, but your body tells the truth before your face does. The tightening in the chest, the rush of heat when a message arrives, the sudden silence after someone says one wrong thing, the fight or flight surge that can take over before you have even named what hurt. That's why today calls for caution around speech. Words can be twisted now, context can be lost. A feeling can come out as an accusation if you speak from the first spike of adrenaline. Wise people think all they say. Fools say all they think. And today, Scorpio, discernment is a form of self-protection. There is also a longer story running beneath the day's emotional static. The end of this year holds a different chapter around financial negotiations, business correspondence, property matters, and the signatures or agreements that could set you free. Late October into late November and early December has the feel of an emancipation point. Independence. Greater autonomy. A door opening in money, home, work, or business that lets you breathe differently. You may already sense it coming even if you cannot name the paperwork yet. So what happens today matters, not because every detail is final, but because today shows you what must be clarified before freedom arrives. Research now, ask questions now. Read the fine print now. Explore both the emotional numbers and the literal numbers. Just do not make the mistake of reducing your whole future to money alone. If you focus only on the house, the bill, the profit, the possession, or the reward, you may accidentally neglect the thing your soul is trying hardest to secure: space, autonomy, the right to choose without pressure. And that is where love gets entangled with ambition. You may notice today that romance and money are not living in separate rooms. A date, A gift, a plan, or a shared expense could change at the last minute, and what gets stirred up may have very little to do with the actual amount. You might agree to something because you do not want to look difficult. You might say yes because you want to seem easygoing, generous, unbothered, evolved. Then hours later, resentment creeps in like smoke because your deeper self knew you were crossing your own boundary in real time. This is one of the most Scorpio experiences there is. Saying less than you feel, then feeling more than anyone realizes. So check the price, yes, but also check your actual desire. Do you want the plan, or do you want approval? Do you want the gift exchange, or do you want reassurance? Do you want the merged arrangement, or do you just fear what happens if you say no? This can show up in work too. A deadline, a negotiation, a compensation conversation, or a practical exchange may reveal who assumes you will simply carry more. You might find yourself silently calculating everybody else's comfort before naming your own. That is when the nervous system starts to read obligation as danger. And here is the reframe I need you to hold close today. What feels like a money problem may actually be a sovereignty problem. What feels like jealousy may actually be a boundary alarm. What feels like being too sensitive may actually be your body detecting an unequal exchange before your mind is ready to admit it. The moon opposing Uranus is not only here to agitate you, it is here to wake you up. It disrupts what has been normalized but never truly healthy. It reveals where surprise has become a control tactic, where shared resources have become blurred, where support has been conditional, where your generosity has been treated like access. So if someone from the past appears and nostalgia hits harder than expected, pause. Nostalgia under 8th house activation can be deceptive. It can make emotional history feel like emotional safety when they are not the same thing. If an ex returns, if an old friend stirs ancient feelings, if a familiar voice suddenly reopens a room you thought you had closed, do not let memory make the whole decision. Relationships may face tension today precisely because the current transits are asking for cleaner agreements, clearer motives, and more emotional honesty. Singles may do better in the company of friends who widen perspective instead of inflaming the wound. And if your emotions get too intense, reach out, but choose your listeners carefully. Not everyone deserves access to your raw state. You need the people who help you come back to yourself, not the ones who turn your pain into more drama. This means the body must stay in the conversation. If you feel yourself tipping into the reptilian brain fight, flight, freeze, the instant story that something is terribly wrong, stop and ground. Put both feet on the floor. Drink water slowly, not all at once. Roll your shoulders back. Take 5 deeper breaths than you think you need. Do some yoga. Stretch your hips, walk around the block. Move the adrenaline through instead of trying to think your way out of it. Staying active today is medicine. Hydration is medicine. Silence before reaction is medicine. The instinct to work through everything alone may be strong, but isolation can distort perspective under these transits. You do not need a crowd. You need 1 or 2 sane mirrors. There is also practical guidance written all over this day if you are willing to respect it. Avoid risky financial choices. Avoid gambling with money, time, or emotional trust. Review the bill. Clarify access. Confirm who is paying for what. Update the agreement if the agreement no longer matches reality. Listen to advice carefully, especially if it comes from someone who has nothing to gain from your decision. Focus on deadlines. Handle the immediate responsibility in front of you before spiraling into 5 future scenarios. And if your instincts say not to travel, not to go, not to force a plan, listen. Uranian days can bring odd timing and strange pivots. Intuition becomes more useful than obligation. The conversation that was trying to happen all along is this: your worth cannot remain negotiable just because the relationship, the deal, or the memory is emotionally loaded. That is the truth underneath the money issue. That is the truth underneath the delayed response, the unexpected request, the changed plan, the old longing. Today is trying to teach you that transparency is not harshness. Saying, "This is what I can do," is not rejection. Asking, "What changed?" is not being difficult. Declining the more expensive plan is not a lack of romance. In fact, surprise is only romantic when it does not become somebody else's bill emotionally or financially. If you need a small ritual, let pink be your softener today. not because it erases Scorpio's intensity, but because it reminds you that power does not always have to arrive dressed as armor. Sometimes power sounds like a calm voice, a slower response, a clarified number, a hand over the heart instead of a hand reaching for the phone in panic. And if you can, notice the window between 10:00 a.m. and 11:15 a.m. There may be a clearer current there for an important message, a practical task, a difficult reply, or simply a more centered choice. So if you began this day feeling overlooked, overextended, or weirdly activated by something everyone else would call small, let this be your confirmation that your reaction has roots. You are not overreacting to the amount. You are responding to what the amount symbolizes, what the ask implies, what the silence awakens, what the old pattern threatens to repeat. And the gift in today's astrology is that it gives you a chance to interrupt the script, to think before you speak, to breathe before you agree, to clarify before you commit, to choose autonomy before appearances. If this landed in your chest, type "My worth is not negotiable" in the comments. Let that be your energetic declaration, not for performance, but for alignment. And if this reading helped you name what your body already knew, leave a like as a signal that you are done confusing intensity with intuition's enemy. Intensity can become intuition's doorway if you ground it. Scorpio, you do not need to say everything you feel in order to honor what you feel. You only need to stay close enough to your own truth that no one else gets to define its price.